referendums in the Central African Republic and Rwanda. We'll have details. 2015 is on track to being the year with the greatest number of people being forced to abandon their homes. And a major gaffe marks the end of the Miss Universe pageant. Africa 54 starts right now.
Good evening and welcome. I'm Vincent Makori. This is Africa 54. Now, the voters in the Central African Republic have spoken, and 90% are in favor of the new constitution. The results of Friday's referendum will pave the way for presidential and parliamentary elections beginning on December 27th. The referendum results still must be validated by the Constitutional Court, which will complete that task 2 weeks after the publication of the complete provisional tally. The proposed constitution reins in the president's power and extends that of parliament, establishing a Senate to complement the existing National Assembly. It also creates a special criminal court to try grave crimes. The CAR has been mired in conflict for nearly 3 years, since mostly Muslim rebels from a coalition called the Seleka seized power in the majority Christian country. Now, for the latest on the situation in the CAR, Katarina Hoje joins me by phone from Bangui. Katarina, welcome to Africa 54.
Thank you.
Yes, now, first, give us an update. What are you hearing as far as results from other provinces are concerned?
Well, what we are hearing from both from Bangui and other provinces is that a majority has voted yes to this new constitution. Like you mentioned, the result has been confirmed, and we're still waiting to hear from a lot of the provinces. But what I was told earlier today is that we might expect the results already tomorrow, which is way ahead of when the Constitutional Court has to deliver them. I think it's not so much about the result here, but the fact that the country was actually able to go through its referendum and vote despite some minor disturbances, especially here in Bangui.
And those disturbances were a great source of concern. What is the situation today as we speak?
Well, most people I've spoken to say that the situation has calmed down, and that's actually the feeling I get in Bangui. Unfortunately, after almost 3 years of conflict, people are pretty used to the occasional gunfire, but that seemed to have come down. Many mentioned the referendum as kind of the last chance for the armed groups to show that they still have a presence in the capital, but they're not as strong as they can continue controlling it, and they're not strong enough to disturb the upcoming elections.
And of course, that is putting in place the structures and institutions. But what are you hearing about the people themselves, the reconciliation between the Muslims and the Christians?
Again, people keep on insisting that the problem the situation is getting better and better every day. The problems are now with the small militia groups and basically bandits that keep on taking advantage of the situation. And this divide that does still exist, but it's not really a problem in daily life. I meet Muslims who keep on going into the Christian neighborhoods and Christians who come and work in the Muslim neighborhoods. And even though they still live divided, or very much divided, there is interaction between the two groups, and it's getting better and better.
And very briefly, I know you just got there, but is there any sign that people who had run away from their neighborhoods are coming back?
We have been seeing people coming back over the last year. Unfortunately, when people come back, there tend to be some tension or fighting erupting, and people don't dare to come back with the whole families. Some have not yet there to settle down in their old neighborhoods. A lot of people have, of course, had their houses destroyed. Businesses have been taken over by their neighbors. So there is a small trickle of people returning to Bangui, but I think it will take some time before people actually feel it's definitely safe to come back.
Well, Katarina, thank you very much. Katarina Hoje reporting from Bangui. Now, not too far from the CAR, Rwandan voters overwhelmingly supported changes to the constitution that would allow President Paul Kagame to extend his term in office. 98% of those casting ballots Friday voted yes to change the constitution to allow Mr. Kagame to seek another term and potentially rule until 2034. Kagame's current term expires in 2017. Kagame, 58, has been president since 2000, but effectively in control since his rebel force marched into Kigali in 1994 to end a genocide. The U.S. and European Union said the amendments to the constitution undermines democracy in the Central African country. Well, for more insight, I'm joined on the phone by Major Robert Higiro, the coordinator for Belgium, Democracy in Rwanda Now. Higiro is also a former Rwandan army major. Major Higiro, welcome to Africa 54.
Thanks for having me.
Now, Mr. Kagame actually thanked the people of Rwanda, and some would say, well, the people of Rwanda have spoken. You have a problem with that? 98% yes.
Thank you for that question. Well, I think it has been, about 4 to 5 years we have been trying to, inform the donors, especially of what is the situation is in the country. Mr. Kagame has managed to, lead Rwandans with the barracks, and people are terrified and they live in total fear. And if you could see on the lines the day of, voting for the amendment, nobody was talking to each other, under the faces, under the body language would tell you that something is seriously wrong.
Now,
yes. So there's nothing like 98% saying yes, and the whole process from when they started amending the Constitution and when he announced that they would actually, when they set the date for deciding dates, people were only given 4 to 5 days for explaining what is actually what has been amended.
But still, 98%. Would you say people have such fear that they would actually go and vote, or some people would be suspicious whether those numbers are real?
The numbers are not real, and they announced the results after maybe 1 or 2 hours of the voting. How could a human being manage to count so fast that they knew the results right away? It tells you that the numbers have been proposed and they have been agreed on, and they know the outcome. They decide which districts to come first.
Yes.
They decide which districts to, have a few no's. And it's not about what the citizens voted for. It has nothing to do with what they voted for.
But, Major Higiro, you see, this is a done deal, right? This is a constitutional change. So Mr. Kagame will legitimately be able to run, right? Is there anything that can be done?
This is Mr. Kagame has sent a clear message to Rwandans and his international friends, especially the donors, that there's no way he's going to leave power, and we know why, peacefully, and hand over power like all democracies do, because of, the crimes that he has committed. We have the UN mapping report, we have assassinations going on overseas, we have people being killed in the country, we have the massacres of Hutus in Chiweho, in DRC, all that makes him, it puts him in a difficult position to leave power, and his only option is to hang on to power.
Major Higiro, thank you very much. We'll continue this conversation another time. Major Robert Higiro, he's coordinator for Belgium, Democracy in Rwanda Now. Now, the images are powerful. Thousands of people desperate trying to reach safety on the shores of Europe. The news remains bleak when it comes to the lives of these migrants. According to the UN Refugee Agency, 2015 will likely break all previous records as the year with the greatest number of people being forced to abandon their homes. Alberto Pimienta has our report.
Nearly 1 million refugees have crossed the Mediterranean Sea so far this year, trying to find a safe and new beginning. Most of them are escaping conflicts in Syria, Iraq, Afghanistan, and Somalia.
We see that the flows are so strong, even now, this late in the year, that perhaps by Tuesday or even before then, IOM estimates that the million-person mark will pass. This is almost 5 times last year's level.
The International Organization for Migration says Europe is facing its worst migrant crisis since World War II. The figures for this year will likely be 4 times more than 2014. According to the UN Refugee Agency's newest report, the global refugee population as of mid-2015 reached more than 20 million people for the first time since 1992. And the prospects for next year are not optimistic.
Displacement is getting worse in 2016. We thought that we had reached a record level last year, that things could not get even worse, but unfortunately that is exactly what is happening.
One by one. The UN Refugee Agency also estimates more than 4,500 people flee their countries every day. The return rate for refugees is also at its lowest levels in 3 decades, making it unlikely many of them will return home anytime soon. Alberto Pimienta for VOA News, Washington.
Well, as 2015 draws to a close, there appears to be no solution to significantly contain the migrant crisis. Channel's TV correspondent Cynthia Array attended a one-day conference here in Washington, D.C. and has this report.
These are the pictures that flood our television screens on a regular basis, some ending on a good note, others on a bad one. The migrant crisis has dominated the headlines for most of 2015, and despite the conferences and meetings, the problem still lingers. For this reason, the International Organization for Migration has brought together over a dozen panelists, and their motive is one theme: that's how to deal with the situation come 2016. Simon Henshaw of the U.S. Department of State highlights one reality that stares destination countries in the face: the growing number of refugees.
They will not stop coming until there is a resolution to the conflict and until the conditions in asylum allow them to be able to thrive and to take care of their children. And they're watching as their children miss year after year after year, and now we're in the 4th year after year of access to education and to growth.
The United States has been highly criticized for not doing enough to stem the crisis. However, the UNHCR begs to differ.
The U.S. has already invested $4.5 billion in humanitarian aid since the beginning of the crisis. But beyond that, the 2 areas I'd like to mention today that we're focusing on are education and relief to resilience.
Speaking of the United States, presidential aspirant Donald Trump has suggested that a ban be placed on all Muslim entry into the country until representatives can figure out what to do about terrorism. He was criticized by several individuals, with no exception in this meeting.
We are not terrorists. I'm not a terrorist. I'm Syrian. I'm very proud to be Syrian. I haven't been in my country for 10 years. I'm from Damascus, and I am going to become a U.S. citizen next week. By the way, my test is on Thursday, and I hope I pass it.
More than 750,000 migrants have arrived by sea this year, and according to Eurostat statistics, here's where most of the large numbers are coming from. Syria tops the list without surprise, Afghanistan comes in 2nd place, and Nigeria comes in at number 8. More solutions are suggested in this meeting, with emphasis being placed on how to view the crisis from a different perspective.
In the current situation, countries that host refugees in particular have a tendency only to count the costs of hosting refugees and don't really like to admit that there are also benefits. For that reason, I think it's tremendously important for humanitarian actors as well as development actors to invest in those host communities. So I think the long-term picture is bright. The short-term and medium ones are tremendously challenging, but as Angela Merkel has said, famously, we can manage.
Well, that was Channels TV correspondent Cynthia Array reporting. U.S. President Barack Obama is expressing confidence that those opposing the Islamic State terrorist group will prevail and says he thinks there will be significant progress in that effort by the time he leaves office. In an interview with NPR News released Monday, Mr. Obama called Islamic State a virulent, nasty organization, but stressed that the worst damage the militant could do to the United States is if people change their way of life and values.
It is also important for us to keep things in perspective. And this is not an organization that can destroy the United States. This is not a huge industrial power that can pose great risks to us institutionally or in a systematic way. But they can hurt us, and they can hurt our people and our families. And so I understand why people are worried.
Well, more than a year ago, the president authorized a U.S.-led air campaign in Iraq and Syria to go after the militants. Since then, coalition planes have conducted about 9,000 airstrikes, and Obama says Islamic State has lost 40% of the populated territory it once controlled. But the militants still hold large areas, including major cities in both Syria and Iraq, bringing criticism of the U.S. response and calls for Obama to send in American ground troops. He told NPR there is legitimate criticism of how his administration has handled the campaign, which he says may be due to not properly communicating what is being done. Now, we want to know what you think about Africa 54 and the stories we cover. Join the conversation on Facebook. The address is Africa 54. Check out our headlines 24/7 on voaafrica.com and find me on Twitter at VOA Vince Makori. Well, coming up, the plight of displaced citizens inside Nigeria. Stay with us.
I wanted to present music and a side of American culture that is most important to me, that is a part of who I am. They're going to get some incredible performances. That's one of the things I love, bringing these artists in so you can get to see them do what they do. It's soul music, and that's what music is. It's that which comes from the soul.
Welcome back. Our next story takes us to Nigeria's Adamawa state, where internally displaced persons in the Makori camp are making desperate calls for help from the officials and foreign donors. Channels TV correspondent Victor Matthias visited the camp and tells us more.
The Malkohi IDP camp is situated a few kilometers from the one set up by the government in Yola, the Adamawa state capital. No security, healthcare center, electricity and other social basic amenities, and the people get little or no donations from government, NGOs and international bodies. With 215 households, 777 children, excluding male and women, these people find solace here after being sacked from their ancestral homes by Boko Haram terrorists. Husseini Bukar fell from a truck while fleeing from the Boko Haram terrorists. After carrying this metal on his leg for 2 years, he has contemplated suicide to end the pain he experiences daily. Abandoned by the NGO that took up his medical bill initially, he cries for help.
ina roƙon jama'a goma a taimaka min don girma Allah taimakon da nake nema wajen jama'a Najeriya gaba da musulmi da Krista na neman taimakawa wajen su taimaka min su raba ni da abin nan wahalar da na shiga cikin su taimaka min don girma Allah.
A ina ke maka
diresin nan dama Gombe na kai mun aiki da aka yi mai aiki a Gombe nan ba sa to ina ga yan wasu kuma ba sa karfi a cikin biyan kuɗi maganar likita ba yanzu wayannan kuma wayannan suna diresin na taimaka min ne daga nan asibitin na Malkwai.
The Adamawa state government, however, says it's aware of the IDPs in this camp, but to integrate them into the society, the proper channel has to be followed.
We are aware of the fact that they are opening up new settlements, and so when the information gets to government through the proper channels, we recognize them as a settlement, and then we will take necessary measures to integrate them into the system. But these ones are still living as internally displaced persons in Goza, in Adamawa, but they are Goza people essentially. So this is as far as we are concerned.
The Adamawa and Borno state governments may have to liaise with each other to determine the fate of these people, but until then, they remain exposed to dangers that come with living in such a condition. Victor Matthias, Channels Television News.
Well, it's time now for a short break. Still to come on Africa 54. Good news for Jay, the American reality star. Be right back.
If you've just joined us, I'm Mariama Diallo, and here is a quick recap of today's headlines. An official from Air France says that a bomb scare causing an emergency landing in Kenya was a false alarm. In South Sudan, thousands of Nuba community members gathered to celebrate their war-hit region's heritage. In Ivory Coast, residents in the southern part of the country hope for donations to handle rising sea levels that have flooded part of the region. In Uganda, the country plans to resume talks of reconciliation to end the ongoing crisis in Burundi. Finally, Nigeria residents participate in its first ever Santa Dash to raise money for charity. That's all for today. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.
Welcome back to Africa 54. Here's what's trending. Now, this may look like ice, but it's glass, an extraordinary suspension bridge hanging across a valley in China's Hunan province. Throughout the year, the Climate Change Conference in Paris has led architects, engineers, and artists to show us how design can improve the way we live. In Sao Paulo, Brazil, architects have found a new place in which to set up their gardens in a crowded urban space with vertical blooms built into the walls of the tower blocks. Meanwhile, in the Netherlands, the trend for floating houses is growing because they still offer the comforts of living on land. Well, next up, are the holidays wearing you out? Well, in this store, everyone's welcome, even if they snore. These people are sound asleep on massage beds. But this is not a health spa. It's a shop in Los Angeles. The Migun Western shop in the middle of bustling Koreatown sells an acupressure bed that is creating quite a commotion. The shop is letting customers take a nap in the beds for as long as they want. It's turned the shop into a makeshift napping lounge that is now one of the hottest spots in town. No one is ever asked to leave or pay, but people can tip $1 or $5 if they like. Well, and finally, good news for a table flipping housewife. Teresa Giudice of New Jersey Real Wives fame is slated to be released Wednesday from the Danbury Federal Correctional Institution in Connecticut. That's according to her lawyer. She will then head home to husband Joe and their 4 daughters in Montville, where she will be on home confinement until February 5th. Giudice has been at the prison since January. She and her husband pleaded guilty last year to bankruptcy fraud. They admitted hiding assets from bankruptcy creditors and submitting phony loan applications to get some $5 million in mortgages and construction loans. And that is what is trending today. Now, our next story is more than trending. It's exploding. Miss Philippines won this year's Miss Universe competition in Las Vegas, but Pierre Alonso Wutzbach's crowning was delayed when host Steve Harvey mistakenly announced the first runner-up as the winner.
Miss Universe 2015 is Colombia.
Well, Miss Colombia was crowned and blew kisses to their audience for a few minutes before Harvey returned to the stage with the stunning news.
I have to apologize. Miss Universe 2015 is Philippines.
Now, to his credit, Harvey took full responsibility for wrongly reading the card announcing the winner and the runners-up. Adding insult to injury, Harvey tweeted his apology, misspelling both Colombia and Philippines. The mistake was corrected later. U.S. presidential candidate Donald Trump and NBC Universal were co-owners of the Miss Universe organization. Until early this year, Trump made disparaging remarks about Mexican immigrants when he announced his bid for president, causing Spanish-language network Univision to pull out from broadcasting the Miss Universe pageant, and NBC to cut business ties with Trump. Miss Universe aired on the Fox network. Well, it's time for our Monday Sports Report. For the latest news and notes, we turn to Sunny Yang with the sunny side of sports. Sunny.
Hello, Vincent, and sporty greetings once again to our Africa 54 viewers. When it comes to men's tennis in 2015, Serbian star Novak Djokovic was clearly at the top. Djokovic had a sensational year, winning 3 of the 4 Grand Slam tournaments, the Australian Open, Wimbledon, and the U.S. Open. He also came very close to completing a calendar year Grand Slam. Djokovic lost in the final of the French Open to Swiss player Stan Wawrinka. With his 3 Grand Slam titles in 2015, Djokovic now has a total of 10 in his career to establish himself as one of the greatest players of all time. Off the court, the 28-year-old Djokovic became a UNICEF Goodwill Ambassador in August. He got married last year, and he and his wife, Yelena, are the proud parents of a baby boy, Stefan. Djokovic says becoming a father has given him a different perspective about tennis.
It's different now. I'm playing for my boy, I'm playing for my family, and there's a deeper intrinsic value and meaning to this win this year. Still feel that I'm at the peak of my career and still feel that there are many more years ahead of me. I still have a juice in my legs, so hopefully I'll be able to win a couple more Grand Slams.
Let's toast world number 1 Novak Djokovic, the top men's tennis player of 2015. I'm Sonny Young, and that's the sunny side of sports. Going to volley back to Vincent Makori.
Well, thanks a lot, Sonny, and that's our show for today. Have a good night.
Welcome to the Voice of America's Newswords. In the United States, federal laws are made by the Congress. Listen to this story about 2 bills.
Even if the immigration bill passes in the Senate, lawmakers in the House of Representatives are considering their own reforms. Agriculture also is a focus this week, as the Senate prepares to vote on the Farm Bill. The House is expected to take up the package later this month.
The House of Representatives is made up of 435 elected members. The number of representatives each state has depends on the number of people in the state.
Often, this group of lawmakers is called simply the House. Now, when you hear the term House of Representatives, you'll know what these newswords mean.